Boys don't become men simply by getting older. They must be shown the way. They must be initiated into manhood by other men. They need brothers. The world may be collapsing, but God is raising up good men to raise good men. It's one of the great God movements of our time, and you can be part of it. On the Dragon Slayers podcast, we interview ordinary men with extraordinary tales of conquering their fears and becoming fearless, loving men of God. Through their stories, you will hear rich wisdom, practical advice, and the value of brotherhood so you can stand out as a man among men. Warning, we will not mince words. We believe soft men and soft advice slay no dragons. So prepare yourself like a man. This is the Dragon Slayers podcast.
Well, hello and welcome to the Dragon Slayer podcast.
Wow.
Ben Serpell and Christian Zamora and me, Danny Silk, and we are here to introduce to you a world that is picking up some momentum, and it's picking up some relationships. It's picking up some culture. We're gathering resources. This would be one of them that we would be providing to just help guys do what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is many years in the making. This is really exciting. I think I love doing stuff with men and helping men, but this feels like, I don't know, I'm maybe I'm biased because I'm sitting here at the table, but this feels like one of the most important things that we can be doing to help men have a vision and a model to do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Feels like Christmas. Feels like Christmas,
Ho,
and
ho,
not,
ho.
you know, it's once a year you have to wait. This one I talked about for years in the making, so it's so exciting to be able to actually share this publicly. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of this, Danny, has to do with your newest book coming out, The Way of the Dragon Slayer, 7 Reasons Men Need Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this 7 theme going on because in the book, you also talk about 7 dragons every man must face.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit, and our listeners a little bit, about what these 7 dragons are?
Yeah, I think, as we think about the life of men in particular, there is a pattern of things that we are working through all the time. It starts with really how I see God. So man and God is going to be a theme, and there's fear behind that. There's a fear that we have to slay. We have to be willing to face these fears, face these dragons, and if we don't, then they shape us, and we end up reacting in fear in our most important roles. Not just in our identity, but then we take it into a marriage. We lead our family with this fear. We begin to our life begins to limp because of this fear, and it's because it's altered us. But if we'll actually face it, and this is where the brothers come in, because it is we need a gang to face this stuff. It's not going to be just you successfully knocking this down again and again. Certainly you will on occasion, but when you've gathered men around you who have compassion, they have an understanding, and many of them are quite possibly further down the road on this particular dragon than you are. So when we start with your perspective, experience, expectation of who God the Father is, it has to be set that you are a dearly loved son. If it isn't, then you classically are anticipating being punished. You're anticipating being unworthy. You're anticipating the judgment for your failings. And that's the language we use there in the illustrations of in the book are, you either wake up in a courtroom every day before the judge as a criminal, and you either got caught or you're on parole, and you're just waiting to mess up until the judgment comes down, and here comes the punishment to keep you in line. And a lot of guys, a lot of Christian men are waking up in the courtroom every day. And that has been extinguished. That has been satisfied by the blood of Jesus, the work of the cross, so that you and I can wake up in the living room with a loving Father, and we will check our connection. How is my connection? Have I grieved you? Have I quenched your spirit? Do I need to repent? To not to postpone or to avoid punishment, but to mature the connection, to mature the love. And that momentum is what turns me into a completely different husband or father,
Yeah.
or even representative of my Father to other people.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like this is worth taking pause for a moment. If men are listening, literally pause if you have to and consider this question,
Mm-hmm.
because this is the first dragon on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Danny set this up on purpose, with this being the first one, because if this hasn't worked out,
Yeah.
the rest of these dragons are gaining steam.
Yeah.
Till this one gets slayed.
Yeah.
In your mindset, in your perspective, your paradigm.
Yeah.
It's such an important piece. I think that we're all working through at different levels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. And if you have a big sign around your neck that says "will work for love," it's because you got this one wrong.
Wow. There you go.
You know, you're trying to make yourself lovable. You're trying to make yourself worthy. You're trying to protect yourself with perfection. That's because you got this one wrong. Yeah. So sorting out man and God is the first dragon.
Beautiful.
The next dragon is equally cumbersome and complicated, because it's man and himself. And so we all have that critical voice. We all have that I saw you. I witnessed what you thought. I witnessed what you did in secret. I witnessed what you and your computer are doing. I witnessed what you and the way you looked at that lady are doing. I saw you do that. How dare you try to pretend that you're somebody else? You are a hypocrite. That's the internal world and the battle, the dragon of man and himself going on. And this is where, you give up your authority because you feel inadequate. You feel like an imposter. You feel disqualified. I think probably the greatest consequence of the porn epidemic that is ripping through our men is that you feel disqualified as a protector of women. You've been disqualified from your position because of how you have participated in the exploitation of women. Yeah. There's a self-hatred that's attached to that, to where you just really can't love yourself. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. What you give away to others is really the love that you got from the Father that convinced you that you're worth dying for, and that's what you give to other people. But it's not uncommon for a guy to lose the battle with himself and act more like a UPS driver than as a dearly loved son. Like, hey, here's what the Lord sent you, but it doesn't get on him.
Wow. Good. Keep going.
There we go. And so, and then here we go.
What is over here?
Man and woman, or women. I think it's this is where we show up as that protector, that provider, that connector. I mean, this really is the exporting of all the good work that happened on the inside with God and with myself. Now I begin to export, and the quality of what I've learned and the quality that I protect in a community of healthy men is what bumps the game for the experience of the women in my life. And it's not just my wife, it's also my daughters, it's my mom, it's my sisters, it's the women that come in contact with me. They actually get to believe that I am an ambassador for my Father, and they experience that. And the dragon that is perpetually pressing against a man is that fear of rejection from a woman. You know, that's where all the control comes from. That's where all the posturing comes from, and you know, the competition, all that comes from that fear. I'm protecting myself from the pain of rejection and or disconnection. I'm so afraid of that pain that I don't know how to move towards her, so I disconnect, posture, and then compete, rage, and punish her. You know, so the rejection, disconnection, and betrayal fear it will pervert my perception of who she is, who they are, who women are. You can tell when a guy is losing this battle because he lumps all women into being this target of punishment and rage and judgment. You know, and I think misogyny and that type of thing is really rooted in that guy lost to that dragon.
Yep. Got to win that one.
Yeah. That fear of rejection just is plaguing so many men.
Yeah.
Let's see him win. Come on, man.
Yeah. And the fear of being disconnected. So rather than pursue connection, get connection, protect connection, we have temporary moments of connection, and then we live in a disconnected marriage, and then we complain about how terrible marriage is. Like, no, dude, that was you. That was your fail. You know, get in there and love her like Christ loved the church.
Yeah, and that's how men start winning with marriage and with women. Like there's two part, like one, just even a man pursuing a woman. This idea of like, it is scary when you're out there. We have some great conversations, you know, coming where we heard so many stories of great men just in pursuit of women.
So next is men and men, right? And this is where men that don't win here end up isolated. That, you know, Proverbs 18:1 is a man who isolates himself, rages. Well, he seeks his own desire, so he becomes self-centered. He becomes the master of his universe, which means nobody can give him feedback because he rages against wise counsel and judgment. And that's what happens when men are my competition. And I'm really afraid of being a loser. And if I can't win, I don't want to play because I don't want to feel like a loser around other men. And I am so afraid of laying my life down to build a covenant relationship, which is really where the life is. The life is waiting for you in a band of brothers. It's waiting for you on a team. You know, you're better on a team, but you got to work it out. You got to work through, and you got to make a sacrifice. You got to be willing to give your life for this brother. And well, what if he won't give his life for me? What if he won't do the same? Like, well, you don't control that. You control you.
Yeah.
So you invest your life and you become a man of covenant. And before you know it, you're surrounded by men of covenant. That's just how this works.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Quick question there. The first fear you describe with men and men is the fear of competition. How would you describe healthy competition amongst men? Because that's something that most men carry is the desire to compete and get in there. And
yeah, well, the strength of competition is that you bring out the best in me.
Yeah.
The fear of competition is I'm a loser around you.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good.
So I avoid you. Or I build a case against you.
Which would prevent covenant, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. And it'll put me in that isolated place again.
Okay.
Next one is man and nature, right? Now this is, a lot of people think this is where you go camping. It can be. It certainly can be. Get out there, right? But it has everything to do with when the force of nature comes, there is an insignificance. You know, a lot of people describe being on the ocean, how vast it is, how huge it is. We'll tell stories later about being out on snow machines in the middle of the Alaskan interior in February. It's just enormous.
Mhm.
And you feel so insignificant. You feel like a speck, because you are. You really are. You're easy to kill. We're easy to kill. I mean, we be killed by a virus, something we can't see, but we think we're just so big and tough and raw and invincible. Like, no, nature will put you on your heels and keep you there and show you how vulnerable you really are, because weather rolls in, a grizzly bear rolls in, you whatever rolls in, and you are realize, oh my gosh, I'm not the apex predator here.
Humbled.
I am vulnerable. And it puts you in touch with eternity, which again scares a lot of guys because they want control. They really do want to feel like, I know what's going to happen. I have a plan. My plan's going to work out. But when you're faced with nature and the nature of creation, no, your plan is vapor, and it really is a humbling experience. And then man and machine has a lot to do with the the fear of inexperience and facing something and knowing that failure is right there. I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to have to go through a learning process. I'd really like to avoid having to look foolish or feel naive or feel like a novice. I really want to stick to what I know and what I do. And when we get around machines, they, not unlike other humans, they're a little unpredictable, and they have a mind of their own almost, right? They're out of our control. I don't even know how angry I've been at inanimate objects. It's probably the maddest I've ever been in my life is at a chainsaw that won't start, or I tell a story in the book about dropping this gasket washer inside this crankcase on this Volkswagen motor that I just put together, and it was the finishing touches. And I'm 19 years old, and I just lost it. I'm breaking stuff and emptying trash cans in the shop and smacking my car with a wrench. And I mean, I'm just coming apart because I couldn't control this. And instead of trying to control myself, I was trying to control everything else. So the fear of failing, the fear of being out of control, and machines are dangerous. A lot of people they stay away from machines because that's how you die. That yeah. I saw that movie. Yeah. And then man and provision is the seventh one, and it's not about necessarily what you do for a living as much as it is who you are in your life and how other people around you experience you. Do they experience you as somebody that's scared of lack and scared of limitation and afraid of being compared to the Joneses and not measuring up? Or do they experience you as one who brings nourishment and benefit and strength to the environment, to the relationship, to the moment? How do you end up showing up as a man with strength and benefit? How well do you tend to your sphere of responsibility? And are those under your care feeling that strength and that love? So that'd be the 7 dragons that we're going to go through. I don't know any men that don't face those types of things. There may be somebody's going to come up with an 8th dragon. I just know it, like the 6th love language,
Yeah.
Oh, I think food is a love language. Well, we think sarcasm's so I just can't wait for the 8th dragon to show up, or the 9th or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. Just to read them real quick. Those who just heard that description, so important. And I've watched different men wrestle with different ones at different times.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched some men say, I feel like I got them all today. That's not the normal season.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, there's one that's poking its head up, wants to fight. But they're man with God, man with himself, man with women, with men, man with nature, man with machine, and man with provision.
Mhm.
So go back and listen to it if you're like, hey, what was that one again?
Yeah.
And there's a book coming too.
Yeah.
In detail.
Well, I'm imagining someone listening to this. I remember when you first shared these with me, and I'm like, yeah, those are all right. Like those are right.
Mhm.
I've battled those. I'm battling those. Like, and they don't go away.
Mhm.
You know, go like it feels like I've won the war. I've slayed that dragon, and it's like Hydra. Like I chopped its head off, and
Mhm.
it, oh my gosh, it came back. I thought I
Mhm.
killed it.
Mhm.
So I could imagine there's guys out there going like, I agree, those are right, and oh man, that's overwhelming.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
that's a lot of dragons, and like
Mhm.
even with Ben saying, you know, there's like it's usually not all at once, but sometimes it feels like it,
Yeah.
you know, and so it's
Totally.
so my question there is like, how would a man become the man he needs to become to slay all those dragons? Like how does a guy ever be successful
Mhm.
of slaying all those dragons, and what does even success with slaying those dragons look like?
Mhm. Well, if I was the devil, what I would do is I would isolate him off.
Mm,
I would get him so wrapped up in his life and his responsibilities and his selfishness, and I would just pick them off one at a time. You know, but when they join together and move as one, their men are invincible. You know, this is the call to unite, to be a body, to be a brotherhood in Scripture, and that's why when we move as one, we are dominated.
Mhm.
But when we can get divided up and we can get petty and we can get competitive and we can get self-centered, then we are so easy to deceive and then so easy to self-destruct and then destroy each other, which I think is kind of the strategy of a lot of social media is isolate, separate, and then turn and devour each other.
mm. I think a lot of men listening too are probably going, that sounds right. I'd love to be united as one.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know who those guys are.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine people, and when I say I can imagine, because it was me.
Mm-hmm.
I've met like, you know, pride's kicking in. I'm like, I'm the only guy. I'm the
Mm-hmm.
only guy doing that. Like, I don't know any other men. Just like me, it's like, okay, I probably need some input from some other guys if I'm thinking
Master of the
if
universe.
I'm that great. Which is this whole thing of like with brothers. Like in your book, you just actually describe a model for how men could actually start to form relationships with other men so that they aren't isolated
Mm-hmm.
and they don't get picked off. Because I know, I don't have to imagine, I know there is a lot of men who
Mm-hmm.
feel super alone.
Yeah. Well, it starts with one. You know, it starts with one guy agreeing in covenant with another guy.
Mhm.
That's how it starts. And then in my case, and really this model is that that we would find a group of men. And we would find 12 men. This really comes from a conversation that I had with Paul Young, the author of The Shack. A friend of mine, Bob Hassan, and I were up in Portland visiting him for a day. And we just went all over the place. He showed us a bunch of sites and we ate at different restaurants. And probably the only thing I can remember from that whole day was when he said that a friend of his had just returned from a conversation with Billy Graham, who was in his early 90s. So he's clearly retired and at the end of his life. And this guy asks him, he says, if you had it all to do over again, what would you do different? And he said, oh, I would have selected 12 men and poured my life into them. And at that time, I was traveling like a wild man, 200 plus days a year, and felt like I was missing the boat because I wasn't cultivating deep relationships where I was transferring life over the years. I was visiting all kinds of places and doing conferences and writing books, and I knew a million people, but how many of them did I actually take the time to settle into and invest? Like, oh, I think somebody else did this. Jesus did this and is still changing the world.
Yep.
There's still just hundreds of millions of people that are in the downline of 12 men who replicated themselves.
Yep.
And so that's what we're doing. We're getting, we have a recipe of how you would pick your guys, but it's really, I get 12 guys, and those guys go get 12 guys, who then go get 12 guys. And by the time we get to, I think it's the 6th level, we're 3 million plus. And then I think the next level is
tens or hundreds of millions.
Two,
however math
yeah,
works.
whatever it is.
However math works.
Yeah, but I think 8 is 400 and something million, almost 500 million people. Like, okay, that's a dent.
Yeah. And as we sit here today, we are 4 years in to practicing this.
Yeah.
With now three layers out already.
Yeah, we have a third generation that's taken root.
And it's happening, and men are buying into it, and like when you read this list of dragons and you describe what covenant means with men and what we're doing, there's this response that's just consistent with every group I've heard about, including mine, and it's men going, I've been wanting that. That's what I need. And when I say that, Danny, there's something in your book. I don't want to give it away, so please say pass if you want to. But there's this concept that you talk about a little bit about men waking up. And it feels like this is the thing that we're inviting men to go, hey, wake up, get up. There's something inside of you that people around you and that I need.
Yeah. Yeah. Awake, O sleeper. That's the cry of heaven. The Elijah spirit that turns the hearts of the fathers to the sons and the hearts of the sons to the fathers. I mean, this is the day. We've been lulled into a slumber, and we've become just fixated on ourselves, our screens, our appetites, our addictions. We're so strung out as men and so isolated that we are easy to deceive and easy to pick off.
Yeah.
And it isn't too long before not only are we destroying ourselves, we're destroying those around us. And then we hate ourselves and we fall even further into despair.
And this is how we create a world we hate living in.
Yeah.
And one of the most compelling things about this, when you shared it with me, is I felt like I had been awakened to a problem. I started to see the problem. I started to go, oh my gosh, we got a problem. I want to do something about it. I think there's a lot of men out there who are awake and who are angry, rightfully so, and who want to do something, but they get stuck because they're like, how do I change the world?
Too much. It's too much.
And you just stay angry and you stay not doing anything.
Yeah.
So when you started explaining the model and how it multiplies and how if I focused on my local relationships and gathering 12 men, that the multiplication of that is exponential. This is a solution. This is something I can do. I can do that.
Yeah.
And I see how it can change the future for a more hopeful generations. For I got 3 boys at home.
Yeah.
And what we're doing today is really, when I do it, is to bless them and their children and their children's children.
Yep.
So it's so exciting.
Yeah, and it's a covenant. Like, this isn't a book study.
Come on.
This isn't something that a phase that our men's ministry is going through.
Come on.
This isn't a men's retreat afterglow.
Nope.
This is a man making a covenant with other men.
Yeah.
Who are covenant men, who then go on to do the same thing. So this is me committing my life to your success in any way that I can add to it. And there's something that you want from me. So that's what keeps us together is I got something, you got something. How do we take care of this long term? Well, we hang in there and we live it out together. And I have 40-year relationships with other men, and it's because of this covenant idea where there are people that have committed themselves to me over my Christian life, and that has taught me that, oh yeah, this is actually how it's supposed to be lived.
Yeah. What I had, before learning about this, I had rusty relationships,
Yeah.
with friends that I had done life with and I was interested in what they were doing, but they didn't really know me.
Mm-hmm.
We'd get together and it's like, how long has it been? And, we're fast friends again, but it's just for that moment, whatever that moment is.
Yeah.
And I also had people I didn't want to be my friend, like this, like, I'm not looking for friends. I'm not looking to make new relationships. I'm fine just hanging out here. I got enough going on.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can get introduced to this and you experience it, the benefit of it. And it's something I'll be doing for the rest of my life. That's
Mm-hmm.
covenant, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And one of the guys in my group, I had said it before, but maybe he didn't catch it. He heard Danny say that thing you just said and what Christian just repeated, that this really is a covenant for the rest of our life. And he just started crying.
Mm.
There's this healing taking place, I think, of that thing you're describing, is that men are so accustomed to, we jump in for something for a while, then we jump back out. We
Mhm.
find a new thing to jump into, and we jump back out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this thing taking place inside of him, like he's in tears looking at me in surprise, like, really?
Mm-hmm.
For life?
Yeah.
But it wasn't like scared. It was, some guys get scared at first. For him, it was, I'm in, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I've been looking for.
Yeah.
Is lifelong covenant that no matter what's going on in my life, if my marriage is falling apart, there is men that will get closer to me and say, hey, go figure this thing out. Go slay that dragon, and we're going to do it with you. We are by your side. That's just, this is why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. And these relationships are, 5 years old, 10 years old, 15, 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The guys in my group, I have this range of experience with them. And it wasn't until September of 2020 that I could say, I've seen or talked to them every month for the last 4 years.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the goal. Every month we'll rally in a call. Not everybody can make it. It's 4 years in, and I have still yet to have all 12 of my guys on a single call. They rotate through whatever.
Nice.
That's cool. That's great. But that is the rhythm.
Yep.
Is that there is a predictable, I will be on that call. Yep. I will be there every month. And we set up an annual calendar, and I will be there. And who shows. And when you don't show for a couple months, some guys are going to be saying, where are you? What's going on?
Yeah.
Missed you.
In referencing those men you're talking about in that call, I mean, this podcast, what's coming out this first season really is going to be conversations with all the OGs.
Yeah.
Your group, your 12, the people you chose.
The OGs.
The OGs,
Yes.
like the triple OGs.
The
original
ones gangster, original gatherers. Yes.
Yeah. Who, like Ben said, are already starting groups themselves. And one beautiful part of the conversation that we've heard already is this idea of what Ben was just saying is one of the men you selected to be in covenant with, when you told him about covenant, he told you yes, but he said I'm smiling or laughing inside going, yeah, right.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But he said, your commitment, you modeling covenant to him goes, oh, I have hope for this. Because I know there's guys listening going the same thing. You're going, oh, okay, we'll see.
Yeah.
Watch us.
Yeah.
And what you do is you learn covenant. Another conversation was, Bear Snack talking about how, baby bears learn to be bears by watching other bears.
That's right.
And that's what we're talking is men learn to be men from other men.
Mm-hmm.
Men are made
Yeah.
by other men.
And Wes, when I invited him, he said, I've been waiting for something like this.
Come on.
I've been praying for something like this.
Yeah.
I didn't know how it would happen.
Come on.
But I'm so glad. And here we are, in our 4th year, and we're just picking up speed. We are just picking up speed. This podcast, this book, we've had all these events that we've been on. We went with a group of guys to Alaska, went snow machining for 300 miles. If you don't think that's not a bonding experience, we've been pheasant hunting in South Dakota together. Some of us, we went fly fishing in Wyoming together. And it's men do things together. Men bond through doing.
Yep.
Women can bond through talking, but men actually bond through doing. So the Zoom calls, they're good and they're a connect, but they got to be building towards something. We got to be finding a way to get together and do things. And I built a group of guys that are scattered all over the United States. A lot of guys are going to build groups with guys that they see every week. Like, hey, we work together, we go to the same church, we're on the same teams or whatever. Great, do it however you do it. But men of covenant, making covenant with other men, and be convincing in your commitment to take responsibility to be that guy at the hub that holds the other 12 guys together.
Yeah. One of the things you'll watch as you move through this podcast season is, I think we describe them as ordinary men with extraordinary tales.
Yeah.
And they have some wild stories. They're all great storytellers. There's just some wild things you're going to hear of pain and success and great things. But doing it in the context of a brotherhood, and then planting that so we can share strength. And that's a huge part of this podcast is we want you guys to listen first for the dragons, and listen where these guys actually have slayed these dragons in their own story, their own life. Then listen for your own story in theirs as well, because something happens when you hear your story and you go, it is possible.
Yep.
If that guy can do it, if Bearsnack can figure it out, I can do it.
I wonder how you got his name.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Is this where you read that
you should,
that prompt there that
live reading?
Yeah, this is what we read before we interview all our guys.
Yeah. Boys don't become men simply by getting older. They must be shown the way. They must be initiated into manhood by other men. They need brothers. The world may be collapsing, but God is raising up good men to raise good men. It's one of the great God movements of our time, and you can be part of it. On the Dragon Slayers podcast, we interview ordinary men with extraordinary tales of conquering their fears and becoming fearless, loving men of God. Through their stories, you will hear rich wisdom, practical advice, and the value of brotherhood so you can stand out as a man among men. Warning, we will not mince words. We believe soft men and soft advice slay no dragons. So prepare yourself like a man. This is the Dragon Slayers podcast.
Come on.
Let's go. Let's do it.
You're the man.
You're the man.
You're the man, Christian.
You're the man.